Trump has ramped up pressure on Canada to increase its defense spending.
They have a very small military. They rely on our military. We basically protect Canada.
Ottawa says it will now spend billions more so it can meet that 2% NATO spending target.
Will the United States protect us from Russia? If you're delinquent, we will not protect you.
Prime Minister spending the day talking up the country's defense spending as the U.S. president demands more.
Canada is expected to sign on to a new defense partnership with the European Union, focused on strengthening global defense and security.
In a stunning display of geoeconomic leverage, a recent executive directive from former President Donald Trump, earmarking an ambitious $25 billion for emergency military spending, inadvertently exposed a critical vulnerability in the United States defense industrial base. This move, intended to project an image of renewed American military might with new destroyers, stealth aircraft, and advanced missile defense systems, instead triggered an unforeseen and profound strategic crisis. The timing was acutely deliberate, set against a backdrop of escalating global flashpoints from the Arctic to the South China Sea, demanding a rapid and decisive reinforcement of U.S. military capabilities. Yet, the architects of this bold initiative critically underestimated the intricate interdependencies of modern supply chains, particularly America's deep, often overlooked, reliance on its northern neighbor. For decades, the intricate web of the U.S. military-industrial complex has been inextricably linked with Canadian resources and industrial capacities, a reality largely unappreciated by the broader American public and, seemingly, by some policymakers. This symbiotic relationship, built over generations, forms the bedrock of critical defense manufacturing. Our analysis reveals a profound reliance. Over 40% of the high-grade aluminum alloys essential for advanced U.S. aircraft manufacturing, including critical components for the F-35 program, are sourced from Canada. These specialized alloys, known for their strength-to-weight ratio, are not easily substituted. Furthermore, the strategic importance of Canadian mineral wealth cannot be overstated. Nickel and cobalt, primarily extracted from mines in Ontario and Quebec, constitute the fundamental building blocks for modern jet engines, advanced battery systems for unmanned aerial vehicles, and precision guidance systems for ballistic missiles. These materials are not merely commodities, they are strategic assets. Canadian firms also provide indispensable components for sophisticated naval radar systems, critical for maritime domain awareness and specialized armored vehicle plating, enhancing survivability for ground forces. Even the Pentagon's burgeoning satellite programs, vital for intelligence, surveillance, and reconnaissance (ISR) capabilities, rely heavily on rare earth processing facilities located in Manitoba, a sector where the U.S. has significantly divested its own domestic capacity over the past 2 decades. This quiet, yet pervasive, dependence had remained untested, a latent vulnerability in the grand strategic calculus, until now. The moment former President Trump's $25 billion military spending directive reached Ottawa, Canadian Prime Minister Mark Carney delivered a resolute and unequivocal rejection, signaling a profound shift in bilateral relations. His statement was a masterclass in economic statecraft. Canada will not be a toolbox for America's military escalation. Our resources are for Canadians, our industries for Canadian defense, and our allies of choice. We will not fuel a strategy we did not shape. This declaration was not merely a diplomatic snub. It was a calculated assertion of national sovereignty and geoeconomic leverage. It underscored Canada's refusal to be a passive enabler of a U.S. foreign policy it did not endorse, particularly after years of contentious trade disputes and perceived unilateralism from Washington. The immediate economic fallout was severe and swift. Overnight, major American defense contractors, from General Dynamics to Raytheon, found their critical supply lines severed. Shipyards across the U.S., from Bath Iron Works in Maine to Huntington Ingalls Industries in Mississippi, reported immediate and acute material shortages, halting progress on multi-billion-dollar naval programs. Boeing's Defense Division, a cornerstone of U.S. air power, was forced into a frantic scramble to identify alternative sources for specialized aluminum alloys, a process fraught with qualification delays and prohibitive costs. Lockheed Martin, a titan in aerospace and defense, issued stark warnings that production of critical missile systems, including the Javelin and Patriot, could face delays of up to 18 months, directly impacting U.S. and allied force readiness. This unprecedented disruption highlighted the fragility of just-in-time supply chains in a geopolitical context. The Canadian refusal triggered a cascading chain reaction of vulnerability across the entire U.S. defense sector, exposing systemic weaknesses that military analysts and economists had long warned about. Naval construction projects, the backbone of America's global power projection, were immediately impacted. Without the specialized Canadian aluminum, construction on 3 new Arleigh Burke-class destroyers, vital for maintaining naval superiority in contested waters, was brought to a standstill in shipyards across Virginia and California. This directly impacts the U.S. Navy's ability to meet its force structure goals and maintain its operational tempo. The implications for air power were equally dire. The next tranche of F-35 stealth fighters, a cornerstone of future air combat capabilities and a significant export for the U.S., scheduled for delivery in 2026, faced indefinite delays. This not only impacts U.S. Air Force readiness, but also creates ripple effects for allied air forces awaiting these advanced platforms. Economically, the impact was projected to be devastating. Preliminary analyses by defense economists warned that as many as 85,000 American defense workers, spanning highly skilled engineers to manufacturing technicians, could face layoffs if the supply shortages persisted beyond a few months. This represents a significant blow to the U.S. industrial base and a potential loss of critical expertise. Strategically, the global ramifications were immediate and profound. Military analysts in Beijing and Moscow openly seized upon the crisis, celebrating what they termed the unraveling of America's arsenal. This narrative, amplified through state-controlled media, aimed to undermine U.S. credibility and deterrence capabilities on the global stage. For the first time in modern history, the United States military, the undisputed symbol of global dominance, was perceived as crippled not by a direct adversary, but by a long-standing, trusted ally. This incident served as a stark reminder that economic interdependence, while fostering efficiency, can also be weaponized, transforming supply chains into instruments of geoeconomic power. From Ottawa's perspective, this was far more than a mere economic dispute. It was a profound assertion of national sovereignty and a strategic reorientation. Years of U.S. tariff impositions, aggressive trade negotiations, and the perceived unilateralism of the Trump administration had severely eroded the foundations of trust and cooperation. The $25 billion military order, framed as a demand rather than a collaborative request, was the ultimate breaking point. It was seen as an attempt to leverage Canada's resources for a U.S. strategic agenda without genuine consultation or shared benefit. Instead of capitulating, Canada executed a calculated strategic pivot. Prime Minister Carney immediately initiated new defense production and critical mineral supply deals with key NATO allies, the European Union, and even select Asian powers. This move was designed to diversify Canada's economic and strategic partnerships, reducing its disproportionate reliance on the U.S. and positioning itself as a reliable, independent global defense supplier. The result was dramatic. While the U.S. defense machine sputtered under the weight of supply chain disruptions, Canada's defense exports surged, fundamentally reshaping the balance of power within the transatlantic alliance and demonstrating the potent force of economic statecraft. This strategic autonomy allowed Canada to project influence and secure its own interests on the global stage, independent of Washington's directives. Former President Trump, true to form, lashed out in characteristic fashion. From campaign rallies to televised interviews, he vehemently accused Canada of betrayal and issued dire warnings of massive consequences. Yet, the sobering reality quickly became apparent. The United States could not easily or quickly replace the critical materials and components that Canada had cut off. Establishing new domestic mining, refining, and specialized alloy manufacturing facilities would require a monumental investment of capital and, crucially, years, time that America simply did not possess in the face of escalating global tensions. The Pentagon, once perceived as an unshakable fortress of military might, found itself scrambling for emergency workarounds, exploring costly and inefficient alternatives. Trump's bold $25 billion show of strength, intended to project an image of unassailable power, had spectacularly backfired, transforming into a humiliating public display of America's hidden economic dependence and strategic vulnerability. This incident served as a stark lesson in the unintended consequences of unilateral foreign policy and the critical importance of understanding complex global supply chains. Historians may well look back at this moment as the true fracture in U.S.-Canada relations, marking a profound shift in the geopolitical landscape of North America. For generations, the two countries had formed the bedrock of continental defense through NORAD, NATO, and countless bilateral agreements, embodying a unique model of cross-border cooperation. Now, the very foundation of that relationship was visibly cracking under the strain of economic nationalism and strategic divergence. Canada's defiance proved a critical lesson. Even the most powerful nation on Earth could be brought to its knees, not by conventional military force, but by the quiet, yet potent, leverage of supply chains, critical resources, and the assertion of national sovereignty. As one astute Canadian analyst succinctly put it, America thought its power was built on steel and ships. In truth, it was built on trust, and Canada just broke that trust. This event fundamentally reshaped perceptions of power in the 21st century, highlighting the growing importance of geoeconomics in international relations. This crisis compels a critical reevaluation of U.S. defense industrial policy and its geopolitical strategy. Can the U.S. military recover from this crippling blow to its readiness and global standing? Or has Trump's gamble permanently exposed America's hidden economic and strategic weaknesses? More importantly, has Canada's resolute refusal marked the beginning of a new North American order, one where Washington no longer unilaterally dictates terms, and where economic leverage becomes a primary tool of foreign policy? The world is watching, and the answers will shape the future of global power dynamics. To our esteemed audience of military analysts and economists, this incident is not merely a headline. It is a case study in strategic vulnerability and the weaponization of economic interdependence. We urge you to delve deeper into the implications, analyze the long-term costs of supply chain fragility, assess the true value of strategic alliances, and consider the imperative of domestic industrial resilience. Share your insights, engage in this vital discourse, and help us collectively navigate the complex geopolitical landscape ahead. Your expertise is crucial in understanding and mitigating future shocks to global stability.